11 Sinister Motel horror stories exposed, terrifying experiences that will haunt you tonight. Sarah could feel the weight of the world pressing down on her as she steered along the abandoned highway, her two kids squabbling in the back seat over a half-eaten bag of chips. The stretch of road seemed to swallow them whole, a forgotten ribbon of cracked asphalt winding through ghostly fields that whispered of things best left alone. This detour was meant to be an escape, a chance to breathe. Instead, it felt like the beginning of something she couldn't quite name. As dusk cloaked the world in shadows, the Sunset Motel loomed ahead. The flickering neon sign buzzed ominously, casting an eerie glow on the cracked pavement as if to warn against entering. The paint peeled like old skin, and its windows were clouded with secrets that begged to be unearthed. Sarah felt a shiver slither down her spine, the fresh start she yearned for quickly replaced by a gnawing unease. She shook her head, dismissing it. Just a night's rest on the way to her sister's house. Nothing more. Inside, a friendly clerk named Harold welcomed them with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You'll love our cozy rooms," he said, but the way he lingered a moment too long felt off, a jolt of fear buzzing beneath her skin. As she checked in, the weight of something oppressive surrounded them, the stillness in the air thick enough to choke on. The motel might have once been charming, but now it was a relic, haunted by whispers of laughter long extinguished. The air grew heavy as they settled into their modest room. Oddly, the lights seemed to dim as twilight settled outside, casting elongated shadows that danced unsettlingly on the walls. The tension crackled and grew stronger when Sarah noticed her children falling silent, faces pale as the thunder rumbled in the distance. "Mom," her daughter whispered, "there's a lady, a woman in a white dress in my dreams. She's trying to tell me something." Sarah's heartbeat quickened, a jolt igniting a faint panic within. She brushed it off, "Just dreams, sweetie." But then her son began too, trembling as he claimed to have seen the woman as they peeked outside. They were too young to lie, yet the thought skewered her heart. Was something more sinister lurking? Soon, lights began to flicker sporadically, each flash revealing more grotesque shadows creeping from the corners of the room. The children, wide-eyed and unnerved, darted close to Sarah. She held them tight, a cold sweat forming on her brow as dread seeped in. Outside, the wind howled, as if warning against fleeing. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The air grew colder as the knock began echoing against the door. The stillness that followed was suffocating. Sarah opened the door just a crack, but no one stood on the other side, only silence invading her personal space. She could feel it creeping in around her, from the peeling wallpaper to the dusty floor. Something was wrong. A chill wrapped itself around her heart like a vice. Whispers of a woman who went missing months ago clawed at her thoughts, drawing her closer to the dark truth surrounding this motel. The shadows pressed in tighter, and she felt a suffocating presence, watching and waiting. The creeping horror clung to her as she turned, ready to find answers, to protect her children, to escape this nightmare. But as she met Harold's gaze again, his malevolent smile widened, his eyes glimmered with a darkness that sent a jolt of fear through her. "Trust me, you don't want to leave this place," he said, his voice low and ominous, echoing all around her like a siren's call. Her heart raced. It was a promise of danger wrapped in seductive warning. What awaited her beyond the door? As the shadows swirled, Sarah resolved to fight whatever malevolence haunted the Sunset Motel. She reached for the door handle, knowing she couldn't turn back. Whatever awaited her would stop at nothing. The moment her fingers brushed the cool metal of the door handle, a loud bang echoed from the adjoining room. The sound sent a rush of adrenaline through her, and she hesitated. Her instincts screamed for her to stay put, to shield her children from whatever horror lay waiting just beyond her threshold. Sarah's breath quickened as she glanced briefly at her children. They curled up on the bed, eyes bright with fear, their little bodies frozen in place. "What was that?" her son mouthed, trembling. "I don't know," she whispered, keeping her voice steady despite the storm of dread churning inside her. With a deep breath, she swung the door open wider and stepped into the dim, flickering hallway. The carpet was damp and stained, an unsettling sensation creeping up her bare feet. She strained to listen. The sound came again, shuffling, dragging. It was coming from the room next door. "Mommy, can we go back inside?" her daughter called softly. "No," Sarah grunted, pushing aside her doubts. "Stay close to me." As she approached the door to the neighboring room, she felt a pulse of urgency flood her veins. What if someone was trapped? What if someone was in danger? The thought drove her closer, ignoring the icy grasp of fear at the nape of her neck. Before she could knock, the door creaked open on its own, revealing a darkened room where only the faint outline of a figure could be seen. A woman stood just beyond the threshold, clad in a white dress that hung like mist upon her figure. "Help me," the woman rasped, her voice a chilling echo of despair. Sarah's heart raced. She took a tentative step forward, drawn in by the sadness radiating from the specter. "What happened to you?" But the moment she uttered the words, the woman's expression twisted to one of agony. The air thickened with an oppressive darkness, shadows slithering up the walls toward Sarah as if the very motel itself awoke to her presence. She could hear her children's whimpers growing louder behind her. "Don't," her daughter cried, clinging to her brother, but Sarah could not pull away. There was a connection, a desperate urge to understand. "I want to help you," she exclaimed. The woman's mouth opened wide, releasing a soundless scream that split the air like a lightning strike. The walls began to tremble, and the room itself seemed to warp around her. The flickering lights above pulsed wildly, plunging the corridor into deep, suffocating darkness for brief moments. Suddenly, hands reached out from the shadows, grasping at Sarah's ankles in a frantic grip, as if the very spirits of the motel had awakened to pull her into their hellish embrace. She stumbled backward, her instinct for survival kicking in, her heart pounding in a frantic rhythm. "Mom!" her son screamed, darting from the safety of their room and grabbing her hand. "Run!" With panic coursing through her, Sarah yanked him close, her daughter scrambling right behind them. They turned to flee, but Harold stood at the end of the hallway, his smile broader and more twisted than she remembered. "The way out is closed to you," he declared, the lights above him flickering to illuminate his shadowy figure perfectly. "You belong here now." The words sunk in, icy and heavy. Horror crashed down around her, crashing her earlier resolve. There was no escaping. Not now. Not ever. As they darted toward the staircase at the end of the hall, Sarah could hear whispers growing deafening behind her, cries of the lost souls, echoes of desperation, and threads of madness urging her to stop, to give in. They burst into the night air, but the darkness loomed more omnipresent out there, filled with unspoken fears and unknown terrors. Where could she go now? Would they even survive the night? In that moment, a faint flutter caught her eye. A silhouette in the distance. Real? Unreal? She hesitated, dread twisting in her stomach. "Mom, please. Just run," her son urged, pulling on her sleeve. With every ounce of strength, she sprinted forward, not knowing what horror awaited them. But something more potent than fear pushed her on. Could it be hope, or something darker? But as she glanced back once more, that figure stepped forward into the light, and Sarah's heart dropped. There was no escaping this motel, not now that it had claimed her as its own. What if they weren't the only ones trapped within? What if more were hiding in the shadows, waiting for the opportune moment to strike? The sinking weight of their fates pressed in on her. She could feel it, the gaze of something watching from the corners of her mind as she ran. One question loomed larger than the rest: what happens when the night won't let you go? The gravel crunched beneath their feet as Sarah and the children stumbled from the motel's grip, the cold night air biting at their exposed skin. She pulled them close, glancing over her shoulder at the looming structure, its dark windows like hollow eyes watching their every move. "Keep moving," she urged, though her own legs felt as if they were pulling her back toward the walls that wanted to consume her. "Mom, where are we going?" her daughter asked, panic lacing her voice. "I don't know," she admitted, fear clawing at her throat. "Just, away from here." The moon cast a cruel light on the empty parking lot, and the silence felt heavy, smothering. As they approached the edge, Sarah caught sight of a figure standing under a flickering street lamp, a man with disheveled hair, wearing a jacket that looked too big for him. He seemed to blend into the shadows, quivering slightly, his eyes wide and wild. "Help me," he whispered, his voice trembling like a bowstring. "Mom, let us go," her son shouted, pulling at her arm. But Sarah felt drawn to him, a pull of empathy amidst the chaos. "What's wrong?" she called, hesitant yet curious. "The motel, it wants me back," he replied, fidgeting, eyes darting. "I thought I could escape, but I can't. It's everywhere. It comes for you." Her heart raced. "What do you mean?" His laughter came out as a strangled sob. "It knows things about you, about your fears. It'll twist them. You'll never leave." Unnerved, Sarah glanced back at the motel. The windows shimmered ominously, as if shapes were moving behind glass, waiting for an opportunity. A chill erected goosebumps on her arms. She couldn't let her children hear this. The man was a warning, but what kind? "Don't listen to him, Mom," her son pleaded, his grip tightening on her arm. "Please, it's only a matter of time before it gets you, too," the man faltered, his voice breaking mid-sentence. It must feed with fear gnawing at her heart. She turned, dragging her children toward the road. "We have to go." But as they moved, the air thickened. Whispers rose from behind them, an eerie chant that filled the silence, echoing Sarah's every anxiety. Don't leave us, they wailed, the sounds intertwining with the very essence of the night. "Mom!" her daughter cried, as the flicker of headlights appeared down the road. Sarah's insides twisted. What if the headlights were another trap? What if they were pulled back into that accursed hotel? But what choice remained? She couldn't stand here, prey to both shadows and whispers. "Run!" she shouted, lunging toward the light. The moment they stepped into its glow, the chanting ceased. The figure from the shadows disappeared, leaving only a haunting silence. But the road felt wrong, twisted in an unfamiliar way, a sense of dread creeping up on them. Nothing seemed right, and the throbbing fear within her heart festered with each step. Just as they reached the edge of the road, the car passed, headlights burning bright, revealing nothing more than desolation in the back seat. No one inside. No driver. Just speed and darkness. Fear streaked through Sarah's body like ice. What's happening? Turning, she faced the motel once more, only to see Harold standing in the doorway, that same twisted grin plastered across his face. "You can't run forever," he called, voice dripping with malice. In that moment, something snapped. Her eyes darted to her children, fear mirrored in their faces. They were hunted. "Mom, it's back." Her son pointed, trembling. But the whispers mutated, clawing through the air, beckoning her to come back. "Join us, you can't resist, surrender." The dread coiling in her stomach threatened to choke her. And as the darkness coalesced into forms once again, ready to consume, one chilling thought threatened to bring her to her knees. What if the motel offered something she never wanted to confront? Just ahead, a path split off into the woods, shadows swallowing the way forward. "Stay together!" she shouted, the blanketing fear wrapping tighter around them as she took the first step into the unknown. But behind her, the call was clear, "You Dawn. T belong in the light, come home." What awaited in the depths of the woods? The woods enveloped them like a dark cloak, shadows stretching and twisting in every direction. Sarah could hear the distant rustle of leaves, an ominous whisper that seemed to follow them. The air grew colder, each breath forming misty clouds that faded into the oppressive night. "Mom!" Her daughter's voice trembled. "I can't see anything. Just stay close." Sarah replied, her heart pounding like a war drum. She could feel the edges of panic clawing at her mind, but she couldn't afford to break. Not now. The darkness felt alive, pulsing with an uncomfortable energy that made her skin crawl, branches snapped underfoot, sounds echoing in the stillness. The whispers faded, replaced by the sound of their own breath, quick and ragged. Sarah led her children deeper into the forest, praying that whatever haunted them wouldn't find a way here. The darkness hung thick, and every inch felt dangerously unfamiliar, as if the very path beneath them shifted with each step. "Are we safe here?" Her son whispered, his voice laced with fear. "I don't know, but we have to keep going," she said, pushing her doubts aside. She wished for daylight, for the comfort of familiarity. But here it was only shadows and panic. The ground sloped downward. Uneven. She stumbled, catching herself just in time before she fell. "Watch your step," she warned, glancing back at her children who struggled to keep up. Suddenly, a chilling laugh echoed through the trees, a laugh that twisted and curled like smoke. It reverberated around them, seeming to seep into her very bones. "Did you hear that?" her son murmured, his eyes wide. "Yes," she breathed. "Keep moving." Then, without warning, a figure emerged from the darkness, eyes gleaming like polished stones. It moved fluidly, too fluidly, stepping with an unnatural grace toward them. "Lost, are we?" it sang, a voice both sweet and dreadful, dripping with malice. "Or perhaps you're exactly where you should be. Run!" Sarah shouted, shoving her children back against the nearest trunk of a gnarled tree. Fear thrummed through her veins as she faced this new threat, willing her heart to stop racing. The entity stepped closer, its features obscured by shadows, but one thing was clear: its gaze was locked on her children. It elongated its fingers, sharp as knives, reaching out in their direction. Sweat ran down Sarah's back, and she lifted her arm as if to shield them. "Get back!" The figure paused. "Give in," it purred, its voice a silken whisper. "Join the others in the dark." "No!" Sarah screamed, clutching her children tighter, desperately willing them to understand. "We want to follow you." And in that moment, the shadows twitched and then splintered apart, revealing what lay beyond. Familiar shapes wobbled in the dark, twisted facsimiles of their loved ones staring back at them with hollow eyes. She saw the faces of friends who had vanished, their lips curled in cruel smirks. They stood there, beckoning her to join them. "Don't look!" Sarah shouted, pulling her children away. The darkness roared in anger. The figure melted back into the shadows, its laugh echoing, filling the space with dread. "Where do we go now?" Her son whimpered, skin pale, eyes brimming with tears. Sarah looked around, the twisting shadows pressing in. Everything felt wrong: time, space, distance. Nothing made sense anymore. "We need to find an opening. Something. We can't stay here." A flicker of light pierced through the trees ahead, a faint glow, pulsing like a heartbeat. "Mom, what is that?" her daughter asked, voice barely a whisper. Hope dared to stir in her chest, even as dread warned her of the danger of false promises. "I don't know, but we have to try," she said, gripping their hands and leading them toward the light, stepping cautiously through the thicket. As they approached, the light expanded, its warmth brushing against her skin, but the distant laughter bled through, growing louder. The path before them narrowed, creating an intense sense of urgency. But what if the light held its own darkness? Just as they reached the edge, a figure blurred into view, standing between them and the warm glow. "You can't escape." Heart sinking, Sarah froze. Would they be trapped forever, torn between light and shadow? A chilling realization squeezed her heart. Sometimes the darkest paths lead to the brightest deceptions. And as the whispers crept closer, circling them like vultures, Sarah looked at her children, knowing one horrifying truth, that the scariest choices lay ahead. Panic surged through Sarah as the figure loomed, its presence a heavy weight that pressed on her chest. The laughter from the shadows danced around them like flames, licking at their heels. Her eyes darted to the flickering light beyond the figure. It flickered almost playfully, as if mocking their desperation. Mom, her daughter trembled, squeezing Sarah's hand like a lifeline. "Stay behind me," Sarah whispered fiercely, her voice steadying on the brink of fear. She took a small step forward, the ground beneath her trembling like it was alive, polished and sharp as glass. The figure shifted, advancing with a predatory grace that sent ice racing down Sarah's spine. Its eyes glinted, every reflection capturing more than just her face. They harbored ancient darkness, swirling with memories of despair. "You want the light, but can you trust it?" It hissed, words seeping into her mind like a poison. "Do you dare step forward? Just back off." Sarah yelled, trying to push the figure away with sheer will. But her heart thudded violently. She felt as if her bones might shatter under the weight of its gaze. Behind her, her son's whimper echoed the sound of terror slicing through the night. She turned, and the air went thick with a choking dread. A collection of shadowy shapes floated just beyond where the light glimmered, all of them mirroring the figure's mocking stance. They looked like mirrors reflecting anguish, teasing and tormenting her with silent screams. Sarah, a voice from within the huddle gasped, and recognition crashed down like a wave. It was her sister, the one who had vanished on a camping trip. "Don't go to the light. It's not what it seems." "No!" Sarah shouted, the pull of the familiar face battling the abhorrence of the darkness. "You're not her. Don't listen to it." Desperation clawed at her throat as she stumbled backward. Her children were still behind her, shaken yet compelled to move towards the warmth. Suddenly, the figure flicked its wrist, and shadows danced closer, churning in wild spirals at their feet. The laughter intensified, wrapping around them like thorny vines. "Join us, Sarah," it crooned, its voice now smooth and enticing. "We can be together again. Just step forward." "No!" she cried, stamping her foot as if to break the spell. "We will not be like you." With a sudden flicker, the light pulsated violently, the warmth against her skin sparking an overwhelming sense of urgency. It beckoned almost sweetly. Should they stay or run? But even as she grappled with the choice, calls of her loved ones morphed into screams, producing a cacophony that echoed through her mind. Shadows twisted tighter, pulling at her sanity. Sarah felt the weight of her children's eyes on her, wide and fearful. What was she doing? Fear pooled in her gut with the crushing realization that the decision hung perilously over their heads. "Mom!" Her son cried again, each syllable stinging as if a knife twisted in her heart. As she weighed their options, her mind racing, a bone-chilling whisper curled around them. "It's too late for them, Sarah." They belonged to the dark. Now gritting her teeth against the suffocating terror, Sarah made up her mind. "We're leaving," she yelled, grabbing her children tightly as she sprinted towards the light, heart hammering, breath rasping. But the shadows thickened, taut like a string ready to snap, and just as they reached the glow, an unseen force crashed against them. Everything went dark. Then, a voice so familiar, so dangerous rose from the silence. "This isn't the end." And just like that, Sarah felt reality slip away, warmth extinguished in an icy grip. What awaited them in this new dark? In that hollow void, her thoughts raced to find any glimmer of hope as the laughter swirled menacingly around them. Would they find a way out, or would they become just another whisper in the night? Sarah's heart raced, the pounding echoing in the emptiness around them. Darkness swallowed sound, lurking just beyond perception. But then, a glimmer of light appeared, weak and flickering, trying to break through the smothering void. "Mom?" Her daughter's voice trembled, barely more than a whisper. "We're here," she said, gripping her children's hands tighter, fighting the overwhelming urge to scream. We're together. The murmurs of the shadows crawled closer, wrapping around their ankles with a chilling caress. You can't escape, they hissed, voices layered like leaves rustling in a haunting wind. Join us. Enough. Sarah shouted, forcing herself to sound brave. She felt small against the encroaching darkness but needed to shield her children. Desperation surged within her, fueling her resolve. You will not take us. For a moment, silence followed, a heavy pause, pregnant with tension. Then, the shadows recoiled, as if struck. That flickering light expanded slightly, casting eerie shadows on the walls, revealing twisted figures lurking at the edges. What have you done? A voice called out, softer now, almost pleading. It trembled with muted pain, a lament echoing from countless souls trapped within the shadows. Why deny us the light? It's a trick. Sarah yelled back. She knew innocence wasn't enough, it had never been. Those familiar faces, the ghostly echoes of her loved ones, only masked the hunger boiling beneath the surface. The darkness began to swirl, and out of its deep, cursed heart appeared visions. Specters of people she loved, her sister, lost all those years ago, her father who died too soon, wove in and out of their surroundings, their expressions twisted either in grief or longing. And it wasn't just them, familiar childhood memories crept forth, once warm and pure, now tainted by the weight of dread. Sarah, her sister's spectral voice fluttered like a paper crane caught in a storm. You know we need you. Come to us. No. She cried, shaking her head violently. The grips of her children reassured her, tethering her to something real. I want to let you in. But doubt spiraled in. What if they were wrong? What if she was breaking an essential bond? The pull of unity felt powerful, seductive in its familiarity. The flickering light behind her pulsed like a heartbeat, luring her, suggesting salvation. Suddenly, her son's voice broke through the chaos, small but firm. Mom, we can't let them win. We have to find a way out. His innocence struck through her fear. She realized then this wasn't just about her. It was about her children, their future, and the horror lying in the promise of unity within the darkness. Hold on to me. She yelled, feeling emboldened. We're getting out. She turned, sprinting toward the distance, emanating the faintest shred of warmth, trusting her feet would find solid ground. But every step felt heavier, shadows clawing at her, trying to drag her back. As they ran, the once comforting laughter turned frenzied, a cacophony of rage and sorrow, filling the world with dissonance. Yet, somewhere amid that chaos, a voice broke through, firm and fierce. You can't escape what you actually are. Sarah's pulse quickened. It wasn't just the shadows that spoke, it was some part of herself, deep and entrenched, unveiling hidden fears she had buried. With every frantic breath, she fought back, thrusting against the darkness. I am not yours. But just as the light brightened to a blinding glare, a ripple coursed through the air, and the shadows burst forth. In a heartbeat, they surrounded her, swirling frantically, trapping them in an unyielding grip. As Sarah struggled, shadows slithered around her throat, tightening and pulling, choking her words into silence. Join us, they drawled, the voices low and sinister, echoing promises of darkness she could never fulfill. Desperation clawed at her, and with it came a sinking resolve. If she was to save her children, she had to confront not just the shadows, but the deep fears hidden in her heart. Sarah felt the choking grip relent for just a moment, a breath caught within their grasp. Together, she urged, desperation flooding her voice. Would their combined will be enough to banish the darkness? And then, a sharp, pervasive whisper brushed against her ear. You think you can face your own nightmare? As the light dimmed once more, she knew despite her fight, the ultimate battle had just begun. What lay ahead was unknown, a daunting chasm of fear. But then again, what choice did they have? Would they find a way to escape the darkness, or would they be consumed completely? The shadows tightened around Sarah, their icy fingers digging deep, pulling her closer into their cold embrace. A thumping pulse echoed in the deepest recesses of her being, a frantic heartbeat anchoring her. But every heartbeat only invited the darkness in, magnifying those whispered horrors filling the silence. "Don't let go," her son pleaded. In the dim flickers of light, she could see his face, pale but determined. "Mom, you promised." And she had. She had promised to protect them, no matter the cost. With newfound clarity, Sarah rallied against the tightening noose, forcing the shadows to recede, even momentarily. Princess promises weren't made to be broken. "Together," she shouted, her voice filling the cramped, oppressive air. "We are stronger than this." The light flared once more, blinding momentarily, the figures at the edges of their vision twisting and writhing in fury. The shadows hissed, their tone shifting from coaxing to condemning. "You cannot outrun who you are, Sarah, shut up." She screamed, desperate anger surging through her veins like fire. "You're nothing. You're just remnants of what I've lost." But they pressed on, those ghostly faces reflecting every grief she had buried, her sister, her father, all illuminated by a sorrow so deep it felt like a knife twisting in her gut. "You will join us. You will." "Mom, look!" her daughter shouted, pointing. Sarah could barely see it through the haze. The pulsating light ahead was fading, but wrapped inside it was an exit. Without a second thought, she yanked her children towards the fading glow. The shadows fought back, their pull becoming a violent tug-of-war, more desperate and manic with each passing moment. Every inch felt like a monumental effort, like wading through thick mud. Suddenly, everything shifted. A screech of metal splintered through the darkness. The light flickered chaotically and transformed into an eerie glow of crimson. The figures around them morphed, revealing their true form, faceless voids, mouths gaping wide, hungry for their sacrifice. They surged forward, aiming to drag Sarah and her children into their hellish eternity. "You can't escape your fate," they shrieked in unison, a chorus of despair that pierced through her resolve. "Hold tight," Sarah cried, yanking her children closer. She could feel the warmth of their bodies, the frantic rise and fall of their chests against her arms. "We're almost there. Just a little more." With a final surge of adrenaline, Sarah burst forward, pulling her children with her, and the shadows howled in fury. The red glow enveloped them completely, bathing everything in a violent hue. The moment they reached the threshold, a blinding flash erupted. A strange vision flooded her mind, images of chaos and laughter, trapped and torn apart in the spinning cyclones of darkness. And finally, a cacophony of voices, familiar yet twisted, echoed in her ears as she crossed the divide. For a heartbeat, all felt quiet, blissfully calm. But then the reality struck like a thunderclap. The shadows roared back to life, no longer clamoring for her but shifting their focus onto her children, their rage overwhelming. "They belong to us. Not if I stop you first." Sarah shot back, not knowing where the strength poured from. Suddenly, her son turned to her, eyes wide with terror. "It's here, Mom." Then came the darkness. Pure, unyielding, swallowing the light whole. The world around them folded in, and there was nothing, no escape, only the endless void they had fought so hard against. What was left of their will shuddered against the tide, struggling, gasping for what little hope remained. "We're with you," she yelled. But the shadows filled the gaps between them, their voices intertwining and weaving into a melody of despair, luring her children away. In that moment, Sarah realized the darkness was clever, more insidious than she ever imagined. It was not just seeking to consume but to manipulate, to expose the cracks in their bond. "Mom!" The cries echoed, blending with the cacophony. Closing in, with the last shred of her strength, Sarah faced the ghostly figures around them, calling out to the fragments of the loved ones they represented. "No! You cannot take them. You will not break us." But the ceiling trembled, and deep below, she felt it, the heartbeat of something ancient stirring against her will. Would they be able to rise against it, or would the darkness finally succeed in its hunger? As the walls of their reality cracked ominously, a piercing scream erupted. The children clutched her tighter, and Sarah braced for the inevitable. Could she save them, or was this their final stand? The darkness swallowed them whole, and for a moment, all sound ceased. Sarah felt the weight of shadows pressing against her skin, their chill sapping her resolve. Her heart raced, a drum echoing in her ears, drowning out her children's screams. Was this where it ended? No. She gasped, a raw plea piercing through the thick silence. But the only response was the howling of the void, the wails of tortured souls clawing at her sanity. She blinked hard, trying to focus, to fight back against the encroaching despair. Maybe there was hope if she could just find it. Then, as if summoned by her desperate thought, a soft glow flickered in the distance. It was weak, almost timid, pushing against the black tide that sought to claim them. "Look!" Sarah shouted, grabbing her children's hands tighter. The light seemed to pulse, a heartbeat of its own, promising safety but almost mocking in its fragility. "Mom, it's not safe," her daughter pleaded, her voice trembling with fear. But Sarah wasn't about to back down now. "We can't stay here," she insisted. They surged forward, propelled by sheer will, even as the shadows lashed out. A spurt of darkness snapped dangerously close, grazing her shoulder, a cold wound that burned like ice. "Keep your eyes on the light," she urged. They stumbled towards the glow, the shadows snarling and biting at their heels. The echoes of her family's lost laughter and memories harried them, chilling her to the core. As they neared the light, she could see it was not just illumination but a door, a gaping portal swirling in colors she couldn't comprehend. "We can't let it swallow us," her son shouted, his voice thick with tears and brave defiance. Sarah nodded, a single tear slipping down her cheek, fueled by fear and the desperate hope for escape. Just then, a monstrous voice echoed through the darkness, shaking the foundation of their existence. "You think you can leave?" it boomed. "You belong to us. All of you." The walls of the void trembled, and Sarah clutched her children tighter, feeling their hearts racing against her own. "Nobody owns us," she cried, feeling a strange warmth blooming inside her, a fire forged from love and determination. "We will not be taken." The shadows screamed in wrath, their howls resonating around them, a fierce gale that threatened to tear them apart. "You will regret this defiance," they shrieked. "Keep moving," Sarah urged, adrenaline snapping her forward as the glowing portal loomed larger. The shadows reared back, gathering their strength, seeking to consume them before they could reach safety. "Faster," she urged her children, whose legs felt leaden as despair sucked at their hope. With every step closer to the light, the air grew thick with tension, a palpable sense of dread wrapping around them. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed overhead, and the void trembled, revealing moments of horrifying images, despairing faces, twisted bodies, lost souls weeping for salvation. It overwhelmed her senses. "Don't look," she shouted, shielding her children with her body, trying to block out the twisted vision. But the weight of the darkness was suffocating, pressing against her with crushing force. "We can do this," she screamed, her voice shaking, the light flickering dangerously. Her heart pounded as they sprinted, shadows clawing at their backs, and she dared to believe just for a flicker of a moment could they truly be free? Then, with one final lurch, they hurled themselves through the portal. The sound of freedom rang in her ears, but then an unbearable pull yanked back, as if the darkness was not ready to let them go. "No!" Sarah roared, bracing against the force. With one last surge of strength, she reached for her children, and the light exploded into brilliance powerful enough to shatter the darkness, a cleansing wave of hope and warmth. But then the world warped, leaving her unsure of what awaited them on the other side. Reality twisted, and they tumbled into an unknown landscape, a ghostly mirror of their own, the sky painted with flickering shadows and whispers of despair echoing in the distance. Sarah looked around, heart racing anew. What just happened? What had they unleashed? And more hauntingly, what shadows still stalked their footsteps? The landscape felt wrong, the air heavy with a stench Sarah couldn't place. It wasn't just cold, it was a suffocating chill that gnawed at her bones. Twisted silhouettes loomed in the distance, shadows that danced and writhed, shifting like smoke conjured by unseen hands. Her children clung to her, their small bodies trembling against the overwhelming darkness. "Mom, where are we?" Her son whimpered, his voice breaking the suffocating silence. "I don't know," she replied, forcing calm into her tone. "But we need to stick together. Let us keep moving." Every instinct screamed to run, yet her feet felt glued to the ground, as if the darkness wanted to claim her. Ahead, a flicker of color caught her eye, a neon sign struggling through the haze. "Look, a motel," she said, finding strength in the thought of refuge, sanity amid chaos. The word screamed hospitality, but now it felt like a cruel joke slung into the abyss. She led her children forward, the shadows trailing behind like dark tendrils, hungry and uneasy. As they approached the motel, an unease settled in her stomach. The building appeared abandoned, its facade crumbling, paint peeling like rotting flesh. A broken swing creaked eerily in a whistling wind, its sound sending shivers down her spine. An ominous vacuum of silence enveloped the place, making her heart race with dread. "Stay close," she urged, casting a wary glance at the cracked windows and sagging doorway. As they stepped inside, the low hum of fluorescent lights flickered overhead, their buzzing merging unsettlingly with distant whispers. The lobby was filled with a thick layer of dust, the floorboards groaning under their weight. A concierge desk stood to one side, abandoned papers scattered like fallen leaves. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. She swiveled, catching fleeting glimpses of movement at the edges of her vision, then nothing. "Mom, I don't like this," her daughter said, voice trembling. "I know, but we have to find help." "Just a little further," she replied, her own voice sounding hollow. As they ventured deeper into the motel's belly, they moved cautiously down a corridor lined with room doors, eyes darting from side to side, scanning for any sign of life. With each step, the air grew thicker, stifled by the weight of unseen eyes. Shadows seemed to seep from the cracked walls, reaching out like grasping hands. Suddenly, a door slammed shut further down the hall, causing Sarah to jump. She flinched, adrenaline surging anew. "We need to go," she whispered urgently, dragging her children toward the nearest room, the metal knob feeling cold and unwelcoming in her grip. The door creaked open, revealing a darkened room filled with barely visible shapes. They stepped inside, and she quickly flicked the light switch, praying for warmth that didn't come. The bulb overhead flickered but soon steadied, illuminating a space cluttered with rotting furniture and fading photographs that looked too familiar, faces she couldn't place but deeply recognized. "Mom, what's wrong with those pictures?" her son asked, his voice too high, almost panicked. "Just old pictures," she assured, though her pulse quickened. Something felt distinctly off about them, as if the subjects were frozen in fear, eyes wide, mouths frozen in screams. Her breath hitched when she noticed a figure in the corner of the room, a tall silhouette that appeared in the mirror. But when she turned, nothing was there. "Get away from the mirror," she warned, heart pounding louder. As they backed away, she felt a prickling sensation rise on her neck. "Why does it feel so cold?" her daughter whispered. "Because it's haunted," a voice echoed from behind them, a deep raspy tone that was neither human nor completely ghostly. The shadows morphed around them, and Sarah spun, dread curling tight in her chest. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice firmly wavering yet tinged with defiance. And then she saw them, the faces from the portraits, their mouths moving, but no sound came. The realization hit her hard like a punch to the gut. "They're trapped," she gasped. The revelation tearing at her heart, but the shadows roared, the air crisp with madness. "You shouldn't have come here," they hissed, the sound swirling around her. "Now you'll join us." Desperation surged within Sarah as she pulled her children closer, the ghostly figures reaching for them, their eyes hungry. What had she unleashed? What darkness lay in wait to consume them? With nowhere to turn, Sarah's mind raced. In this sinister motel of horrors, how would they ever escape? The shadows tightened around Sarah and her children, gnashing their teeth eagerly, pressing in closer with every moment. Panic flooded her very being, igniting every instinct to protect her kids. Get back! She screamed, shoving the kids behind her, but the shadows writhed, taunting, whispering all her worst fears. You've come so far, what makes you think you can resist? They hissed, mocking her with twisted echoes of laughter from lost souls. Don't listen to them. They're lying. Sarah shouted, channeling every ounce of her willpower into the words. She watched as her children shrank closer to her, feeling their warmth against her cold skin. We are stronger than this. In that moment, clarity surged through her, cutting through the cacophony. She caught a glimpse of the flickering light behind the dusty blinds, an exit she had nearly missed, illuminated as if it could hear her thoughts. That way! She commanded, tugging her children's hands. They ran, pushing through the darkened hallway, shadows snapping at their heels. The air thickened with despair, crushing down on them like water. She stole glances back, spotting figures emerging from the walls, mouths gaping in silent screams, reaching out as if to pull her back into the dark abyss. We can't stop, she urged, using every fiber of her being to push forward. The door to the exit was just ahead, a sliver of light beckoning them like a lifeline. But a strong gust knocked her backward, and she stumbled, nearly losing her grip on her children. No! She gasped. But their voices filled her with vigor. Keep going, Mom. Her son urged, his voice rising above the din. With renewed strength, she surged toward the door, shoving it open with everything she had. Bright light poured in, almost too bright, a staggering contrast to the oppressive darkness they had just fled. They fell through the threshold, tumbling into a small, barren room. Overhead lights flickered, buzzing sharply, reviving some of the fight within her heart. Mom, what is happening? Her daughter cried, confusion spreading across her small face. We're safe. Sarah regained her footing, looking around frantically for an escape route. Her heart still raced but steadied at the sight of the sterile, white walls and metallic door at the far end. Come on. We're not done yet. She urged them forward. As they rushed through, a sudden silence gripped the place, crashing down heavy, like they had stepped into another world entirely, and then there it was, a chill so strong it pierced through them. Everyone froze, staring wide-eyed at the far wall where a figure shimmered to life, a mirage of the person she feared the most, standing in the glow of unexpected light. It was her sister, or rather, her sister's ghostly form stretched into something both familiar and terrifying, lingering just at the edge. Or was it a trap? Sarah, the figure beckoned softly, spinning memories into realness. You don't have to fight me, Emily. Is that really you? Sarah's throat tightened. Yes. Join me, and we can finally be a family again, Emily urged, face alight with an ethereal glow, yet shadowed by sorrow. Mom, don't listen. Her son pleaded, trembling harder, instinctively holding tighter as if her sister possessed a dark secret. We can be together. Leave the shadows behind. Emily's voice waxed sweet with promises of salvation. No. Sarah shook her head fiercely. I won't abandon my children to another darkness. The echo of despair in her heart ignited a flicker of defiance, a strong rebuttal in the face of temptation. Mom, please. Her daughter's eyes glistened with tears, radiating innocent fear, pounding on Sarah's heart. Her shield weakened, flickering like the lights around them. Then came the howls of pain reverberating from behind the door they had passed through. Shadows pressed against the edges, trying to claw their way in. You can't trust it, none of it. A voice of profound authority pierced through the confusion. It will betray you. With a furious resolve, Sarah turned her back on the flickering light and Emily's beams. We're leaving this place together. Let them scream. She shrieked, forcing the door open with all her might. Back into the pulsating great unknown, they stumbled as the shadows surged toward them, but this time, under Sarah's unbreakable resolve, the light spilled around them. Trapped between choices, she gripped her children tightly. We won't let you take us. We're stronger. As shadows and light clashed violently, her children's terrified cries fueled a surge of profound love, replacing fear with warmth. Uniting against the dark that threatened to envelop their souls, they expanded their arms wide, willing all warmth and hope to envelop their minds with a fierce glow. In a final stand, they burst forth from where the darkness surged, together. The silhouettes twisted and hissed, fading against the brilliance of love. The ominous specters contorted, with every frantic heartbeat, they lost their grip, screaming, dark tendrils dissipating into a soft fog. In a blink, they found themselves on the other side breathless, back in the familiar clutter of the motel lobby. The air was still thick, but dimly illuminated with the warmth of morning sunlight filtering through the dusty windows, pushing the shadows back into their corners. Reality felt stable, sound returning to nature as daylight flooded the space. Tears of relief streamed down her face as she gazed at her children, alive and warm, and she pulled them close. They were more precious than anything the shadows could promise. We made it, her daughter whispered, awe and wonder in her voice. We're free, Sarah breathed, confronting the fading echoes of despair swirling away like morning mist. They had prevailed. This time, she had rescued them from evil, with only hope and love holding the reality of their existence together. As she cradled them, Sarah knew the shadows would still lurk. But they had conquered them once. And in that victory, only light remained, blossoming powerfully against all that they survived. And as they stepped out of the motel door into the bright sunshine, Sarah looked back just once, assuring herself that this was a chapter closed. The sunset loomed ahead, painting the sky with strokes of hope, promising new beginnings. She breathed in deeply, thanking the universe for churning the storms into peace. This was finally the end of their terrifying journey, and the dawn of a better tomorrow. Before we wrap up, I need you to know something really important. Your support means everything. So do me a favor and subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss any of the next exclusive stories we have planned. Let us keep this community growing. Smash that like button now, it helps feed the algorithm, and of course, you don't want to miss out. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. I want to hear what you think. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans know the importance of supporting the channel. Let us keep the momentum going, together.